Hey everyone, welcome back. And today we're going to talk about Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2K23, I think is the title, or something along those lines. Anyways, whether they put Tiger Woods on there or not, this is his series. It's always been. And I know they've changed it a couple times over the years, but it's a Tiger Woods game at the end of the day. I have an interesting history with this series. I'm not super prone on or big into sports games, but I have enjoyed golf games over time. And I think a lot of it has to stem from a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of enjoyment for the game, both the video game and the actual game of golf. But when I was growing up, early on PC, I had Tiger Woods, 98, 99, I think, these very early on ones, where he had these like funny little FMV graphics for all the characters as they swing and stuff like that, which was a very creative way to do it back in the day, and really did make it feel like, wow, this is super realistic. And it was funny because I was watching a little bit of that footage to preamp this, and I thought, oh, yeah, that doesn't look as good as I remember it. And then, over the years had purchased a couple of the titles in the series, and it was just enjoyable to play with my dad, and we could just pop a match on and have some fun. So there's a little bit of some nice memories there, and a lot of history there, but I haven't played many of these games in the series for quite some time because of its relationship to being published by Electronic Arts. And over the last couple generations there's been a lot of drama, especially in the sports game realm, regarding some of the business practices involved with these titles. So I've steered away. And so if I was to give a preferred golf game and you're looking for something on PS4 or 5, Everybody's Golf. It's fantastic. Not that this is a review of that game, but Everybody's Golf is the one to check out. So I don't actually own this title. I saw it on the PlayStation Plus collection for the month, and that it was free. So I thought, hey, it's been a while since I've seen this series, so let's give it a try and let's see what's going on. And so the question is, how does it fare? When we jump into the story of a golf game, I mean, ultimately the story is going to be about winning the trophies, winning the big tournament. And in this one, it's the FedEx Cup, and you have a couple of other tournaments and championships along the way. And so the story really is just your created character kind of showing up and smashing everybody down the list until they get to the very end. And that's about it. So there's not much in the story realm to speak of. And so we'll move on. And a lot of this comes down to your gameplay experience, and there's a couple ways to enjoy it. You can go play online with friends. You can play your career alone and build your character up. You can also play Topgolf, which I thought was pretty interesting, and there's a couple little game modes in Topgolf as well. So I thought that was a neat addition. But the core game loop is you start your career and then you play around, right? So you play through all 18 holes, and then based on how well you do, you're going to get awarded a couple little things, right? So first off, you're going to get character experience. And when you level up, you get a skill point. And to these skill points, there's what's called boosts, right? So there's 6 play styles, and though I think these play styles, when you choose one for your character, is not going to overly change the gameplay experience from type to type, so you're really kind of playing the same character with generally the same stats. But these boosts can kind of help out or so on along the way. So sometimes it might be if you hit the fairway 4 times in a row in regulation, then you'll get a little transition boost when moving between different types of grass and things like that. And so this is kind of the core of your character leveling up, and that doesn't affect core character stats. That's more so your gear, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I found a lot of these to be not overly useful. There's a whole, I think the second or third tier, all of the conditionals are, have poor swing timing 4 times in a row. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, that's not ever going to happen to me because the swing timing is not terribly difficult in this game. So from a simulation perspective, I didn't think that these added a whole lot for, you know, my aspiration to build this character. A lot of that comes into play again with the gear. And so changing gears, no pun intended, or maybe it was, I don't know. Essentially, how the gear works is that you'll kind of accumulate it in a few different types of ways. One of those is through rivals. So as you play matches, you can choose a rival. And your rivals, if you beat them, may give you a CHP, I think is what they call it. It's basically the cash, the currency in this game. Or they'll give you clothing, so you can customize your character, or they'll give you gear, so you might get a better head for your driver, or it could be a shaft or grip. But each of your club sets, so that can be irons, wedges, drivers, putter, you can get and be awarded various items from, again, the head, the shaft, the grip, that will change the stats. So sometimes, and a good example is the putter. You might get a better putt path, or you might get a head that's going to add more weight to the putter, which will, I don't exactly know. It just, when you see the pluses or minuses, you kind of can gauge whether it's better or not. The game doesn't ever really go into detail on how exactly a lot of these things change the game. I think one of the big ones you see is with the drivers and stuff, when you get gear that adds power. And when you have more power, of course, you can drive it down the fairway further. I think that really helps in kind of giving you a better short game, and then you know, having an easier putt and putt path. And so these are the things that really matter. And so you get them from rivals, and you can also be awarded them through sponsorships. So you can get a sponsorship for your clubs, one for your apparel, and one for your golf balls. And so really the core of the game for me is you win the round, you beat your rival, you get your sponsorship bonuses if you're awarded one, and then you know, jump over to the locker and you kind of reassess your character's equipment and whether they're fully optimized based on the new things you've been awarded. And so the last piece of that is currency in this game. So I found it really funny because when you go into your character's stats and your season stats, you can see event winnings, right? And it might be like, oh, you've won $3 million over the course of your career. But the game itself doesn't actually utilize this cash currency. It utilizes its own currency called CHP. And the ways in which you can get CHP are pretty limited. Again, one, you can be awarded it through defeating rivals. Two, you can be awarded it through character progression, leveling up, etc. And then three, you can buy it. And that is how you can be awarded this currency. And a big problem with the first two is that they're incredibly limited. If you're winning items frequently or beating rivals frequently, you're going to get new gear and you're going to want to use it on your clubs, right? But the problem is that each of these items has a fitting fee. And then not only does it have a fitting fee, but you have to pay it per club. So for example, if you have irons, right? You know, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, whatever, per club you have to pay this fitting fee. And if you get a very rare legendary item, you might get, it might be 125 per club. And then when you progress in character progression or you beat rivals, oftentimes you're getting like maybe 100. And so once you get later into the game, these problems really begin to stack up, because if you're not managing this currency very effectively, you're not going to have money ever to fit some of these legendary items you're being awarded for your character and building their progression in the game. And so this really becomes a bottleneck later into the title that certainly inspires some folks to say, well, I really want to use this item, I guess I'll just buy the currency. And I felt like it's, you know, we live in a bygone era where it's just, there's an acceptance that there are these products and items you can buy for actual currency to do things like quicken the pace of the game or to skip progression or so on and so forth. But I felt like it wasn't very fair for people who didn't want that experience as part of their core title. I mean, that was what I was facing, at least, as I was getting some of these legendary items and then wanting to use them, but I would never have the money to actually do it. And so that kind of hindered the experience from a gameplay perspective. Another thing from a gameplay perspective that I didn't think would be so prevalent, but did become frustrating, is when you're moving between menus. The UX experience, I'll just say, is very slow. When you're moving between menus, you're selecting items. There's so many animations, like you select an item and it like loads into the forefront, or you go to the main menu and an advertisement pops up for the newest season or some event going on, so on and so forth. And when you're in actual golfing events, sometimes there will be automatic replays, or the commentators will run footage of a rival that you're playing, and the load, I counted, it's usually like 4 or 5 seconds that the logo will show, and then the rival will play out, and then it'll go back, and then it'll take 4 or 5 seconds for the logo to load again. And a lot of these little things that are really taking their time in this gameplay experience kind of make the gameplay experience chug a little bit. And it's funny because I'm talking about golf, a sport that is historically kind of slow paced, but I feel like the game really takes a lot of freedom with that concept and plays it out. So from time to time playing the game, I would really just be like X, 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 X. I'm trying to skip X, 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 like just trying to get past some of these logos and things. And it's not, I guess, a great experience, right? Another big part of golf and playing a golf game or going out and playing golf is the experience of the course itself, right? And so from the lens of the world, I feel like the game much de-emphasized the courses. I remember in older Tiger Woods titles, you would have commentators saying much more about the course, or explaining some of its history, or there'd be somewhere to read about these courses. And when I was jumping from career match to career match, I kind of feel like that got lost in the sauce. I think that's a really fun aspect of the game, and maybe that's just me, but I would have preferred a little more of that. And kind of also in this realm of gameplay and navigation and world design, control. I think for all the things I've mentioned about the UX and the gameplay experience from a progression lens, I feel like EA really got right the technical aspects of this game, whether it's swinging or putting, lobbing, or being stuck in a sand trap and trying to get out. I felt the game was very fair in its realism, but also in its enjoyment. It was really fun to calculate based on wind speed. Okay, where should I be hitting this, and defining rule sets for myself. Like such an example of, okay, for every mile per hour of wind, I'm going to want to adjust in the opposite direction my shot about a grid off of the hole, because that's going to, of course, change the trajectory of the ball as it's hit. Or when I'm in a bunker, right, you're going to want to take off a couple, because what's going to happen is when you use your sand wedge and you hit it out, the ball is going to have a more flat arc, but as a result it's going to hit and it's going to roll a lot more, so you want to adjust for that. And so I really like the mechanics of trying to figure that out and perfect the shot. And so I really did enjoy the actual gameplay aspects of the game. I thought that those were really enjoyable. Sound, not a whole lot to say here. The music is actually kind of this funny, like, orchestral trap vibe. Like, they wanted to do something that sounded classical and nice for golf, but they also wanted to make it sound modern and interesting. So you experience that throughout the menus, which I thought was kind of funny. And then in the actual matches, I felt like the commentary was pretty good. You could tell that they really should have voiced a few more lines. I could certainly, anytime you go up to putt, you'll hear one of the commentators say, "Okay, Henny, and what about this shot?" And then Henny will say, "Oh, it's 9 yards from the hole," and that's it. And it's almost every single hole. So I feel like it would have been interesting to get more in-depth commentary, which I think you could do. And you get this a lot when you're playing the rivals, where they'll talk about the rivals and they'll talk about their seasons and their performance recently, so on and so forth. I feel like that would have been a little more interesting if they did that. And graphically, I think the game looks pretty nice. The lighting can be a little, like, a little too much bloom at times. Bloom's probably not the right word, but if you know what I'm describing, you'll understand the concept. Everything's very bright, and I feel like that brightness kind of subtracts from the realism, and maybe it's just the way I was playing. And I was playing on performance mode, which I highly recommend, because for a sports game like this, I feel like you get a lot more out of having like a 60 FPS experience. But yeah, I mean, not much to say there either. It looked impressive, especially compared to Tiger Woods '98, which I was mentioning, and so I did enjoy that. Though there's not a whole lot to look at. You know, you're looking at green courses, blue skies, and characters that are very limited in their ability to be customized. And so when you kind of put all that in a nutshell, it's interesting from the lens of we got a golf game and it looks good, but nothing past that. So I think really it would be fun to get a little more of an arcadey, make golf fun. Don't take orchestral music and cross it with trap music and that's your enjoyment, but make it something interesting to actually look at and to play and experience. And what I recommend is just to go check out the intro for Tiger Woods 2004, and you'll know exactly what I mean. But that's all. I probably won't buy this game and add it to my collection, but it was enjoyable, and while it's still on PlayStation Plus, I think it's worth checking out for anybody who's considering it. It was pretty fun. It's nice to knock away the career, but of course I don't plan to play it much past that. I'd rather go back to Everybody's Golf. And so that's what I recommend you do. And if you played PGA 2K23, please let me know what you think. And if you like the video, please like the video and subscribe. Would love to have you around for the next one. But until then, hope you stay well. And again, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.